Hello everyone. Tonight we'll step into a world more horrifying than any nightmare, where hands are crushed under cold clay and every breath is a struggle for survival. We'll explore the wretched lives of the artisans who crafted the terracotta statues for Qin Shi Huang, where a single mistake meant death, and death was only the beginning of eternal erasure. Forget any glamorous images of glory and immortality. The truth is, you could be swallowed whole within your own body, before even realizing whether you're still alive or already a statue. Before you lean back and get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you genuinely enjoy the content I share, and leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It's fascinating to see people following from all over the world. Now, turn off the lights, maybe switch on a fan for some background noise, and let's dive into tonight's journey together. Blink, and your fate has been rewritten. You just woke up. It seems you haven't yet realized something critically important. You're no longer the farmer from the next village, no longer the poor, unemployed potter mending pots for the widowed old lady at the end of the street. No, you've been honored with selection, not voluntarily, mind you, to become one of thousands of terracotta sculptors for the tomb of Qin Shi Huang. Congratulations, this is your once-in-a-lifetime chance to die quietly, blend into the earth, and become a permanent part of the immortal army. Good news, you're not dead yet. Bad news, you're being carted on an ox cart, hands bound with coarse rope until your wrists are bloody, head spinning from being knocked out since yesterday. A Qin soldier sits beside you, casually chewing on roasted lotus root, like he's on a picnic, saying, "Relax, you've been chosen. Working for the Emperor, quite an honor." You groggily ask, "Doing what?" He grins, mouth full of lotus scraps, carving statues, but not ordinary ones, lifelike statues, soul statues. You'll understand soon enough. The cart you're on sways over a dusty road. Each time the wheels hit a pothole, your head slams against the side with a resounding thud like a sledgehammer striking a skull. The stench of dried ox dung, human urine, and rancid salted meat fills your nose. That smell doesn't leave you. It's the smell of the hell worksite, as the others on the cart call it. A bald old man, nearly blind in one eye, whispers, "You're young. Not bad. Got strong fingers. Be careful not to make ugly statues. They'll bury you in them." You let out a weak laugh, thinking, he's probably senile. But then you arrive. No grand gate, no sign. Just a gaping red earth cliff carved open, leading into a vast, dark cave. Outside, guards stand like statues, but you swear they look no different from terracotta figures. Cold faces, empty eyes, holding spears but as if petrified from a past life. You're pushed inside, feet dragging across the floor, hard as baked tiles. In the cave, hundreds are working, molding clay, shaping faces, carving eyes, sculpting noses, trimming beard. No one talks, no one looks up. A supervisor, built like an ox, passes by you and barks, "New guy, take him to wash his hands." Wash hands? You don't understand. But then you're led to a large wooden basin. Inside is dark red water. You don't dare ask where the color comes from. Another voice snaps, "Hurry, cleanse the filth. Don't let impurities taint the sacred clay." You dip your hands, shuddering. The water's warm, slightly fishy, smells of copper, like dried blood and rusted iron. You wash, hands clean, but your heart isn't. You know this isn't just a job. You're not helping build a temple. You weren't hired to live. You were chosen to be consumed, to shape faces that never blink. Each stroke you carve a piece of your fading soul. And when you're no longer useful, you'll be molded into something that guards the tomb forever, never sleeping, never dying, never leaving. So, congratulations. You've been officially summoned to serve the greatest emperor of ancient China. The only problem is, he's decided to take you with him to the other world, and you have no right to refuse. You thought your lodging would be a simple camp, a bamboo hut with straw for a bed and flickering oil lamps. No, don't romanticize hell. Your home is a pit dug deep under a hill, damp, dark and reeking, where the air is so thick you breathe in the smell of spoiled meat and swamp mud mixed together. You have to duck to pass through the entrance. The walls are lined with mud, mixed with straw, patches peeling to reveal rotting wood. Each step you take lands on something unidentifiable, maybe trash, maybe dung, maybe rat bones. No one bothers cleaning, because no one lives long enough to care. Inside, about 20 people lie sprawled on the ground. using dry straw as mats, torn rags as blankets, and each other for warmth. You step in. They don't even glance up. Sack little man gestures for you to lie in a corner near a pile of unbaked bricks. You walk over and immediately notice the smell. There is worse than anywhere else. The stench of a body dead less than a day. That's Lan, the old worker, who died of fever 3 days ago, ignored by all. His body wasn't buried, just dragged to the corner, covered with a filthy cloth and some wilted grass. You whisper, "No burial." The skeletal man shakes his head, replying softly, "Buried? For what? Tomorrow the kiln needs fuel." You don't want to understand, but your mind conjures the image. A body used as kindling. Your first night in the pit is a sensory torment. Your ears catch hacking coughs, the grinding of knives, someone whispering what sounds like prayers. Your eyes can't see clearly, only shadows of people curled up like worms in a rotting nest. Your skin itches from fleas, lice and mosquitoes. Something crawls across your face as you try to sleep. You want to scream but swallow a damp, acrid breath and end up coughing silently. No one cares. Beside you, someone murmurs, "Don't cough too loud. They'll think you're dying. Die early." They drag you to the kiln. You try to close your eyes, dream of home. But in your dream, your mother's hair is made of clay, and your father is an eyeless statue staring at you. The next morning, you wake in a puddle of dark brown liquid. You don't know if it's rainwater leaking from the ceiling, someone's urine, or blood from Lan's corpse. Your feet are frozen. Your hands are numb. Your head throbs like it's clamped between stones. You don't dare groan. Outside the entrance, a shout echoes, "Up, mold statues. Don't finish. You're the next corpse." You stand, limping out. But you glance back at the pit. You don't know if you're leaving it to work or to die, because that pit isn't a home. It's a mass grave. And you're a short-term guest. Very short. No one wakes you for breakfast. No bells, no savory aromas, no steaming bamboo trays. Just a yell from outside the pit, like a wild dog barking in the night, out to eat. Now, you stumble up, head still spinning, throat parched, stomach growling from hunger, but also fear.
Ice.
You follow the shuffling crowd to a sunken courtyard between the pits, where a copper cauldron, the size of an ox cart, simmers with sluggish smoke, the smell hitting your brain. Not porridge, not food, but something like foot-washing water mixed with sawdust, with a hint of dead meat and the rotting souls of hundreds who ate and died. You line up, no one speaks, everyone like ancient zombies, sunken eyes, cracked lips, heads bowed, trembling hands clutching filthy wooden bowls. The man serving porridge has a swollen face, dead fish eyes, scooping a grey-green sludge with a ladle and dropping it into your bowl, like tossing a brick into a swamp. The porridge isn't watery, as you'd expect. It's thick like riverbank mud, with something like millet grains, but you also see a human tooth, a strand of hair, and a broken fingernail floating in it. You don't dare ask. They call it strength porridge. You sit at the courtyard's edge, where the ground is still warm from last night's kiln ash, and start eating. No spoon. You use your hands. Your hands still have cracks, still caked with last night's clay, so when you scoop the porridge, it mixes with dirt and dried blood from your own skin. The first bite makes your tongue recoil from the sharp saltiness, with an aftertaste sour, like a rag left in a vinegar jar. You swallow, because there's no choice. You try not to chew, just gulp it down like swallowing tears. A worker nearby, trembling uncontrollably, whispers like he's about to cry. Yesterday's porridge had bones. They say it was from Qin Shi, crushed in a kiln collapse, probably chopped poorly. You want to vomit, but don't dare. Those who spit out porridge don't eat again. That's the rule. You keep swallowing, though your mouth starts going numb. The rough wooden bowl scrapes your gums, making them bleed. Another man finishes early, trying to lick the ladle's remnants. The server slaps him hard, shouting, "Who let you touch the sacred ladle?" You freeze. The porridge ladle is a holy relic. Touching it requires a ritual. Of course, the ritual is human sacrifice. Yesterday, a man named Yu accidentally dropped the ladle. The next day he disappeared. Rumor has it, the new statue smelled of roasted meat. You stop eating. A bit remains in your bowl, but your throat chokes, not from fullness, but from the feeling you're eating something that shouldn't be cooked. Maybe animal, maybe human. Maybe the part of you left from yesterday's beating. After eating, you wash your bowl. The washing spot is a stagnant pit full of oily scum and black foam. Some say they've seen dead fish floating. Others say they've seen human hands. But you have no choice. You dip your bowl, pull it out, shake it dry, and stack it as if nothing happened. A soldier passes by, grinning wickedly. Awfully a lug. Eat less. The earth doesn't need fat people. You don't respond. You just look at your hands, no longer sure what smell clings to them. Porridge? Blood? Clay? Or the scent of someone about to become material for the next statue? No one knows. But every morning, after each bowl of porridge, someone doesn't return, and a new statue comes out of the kiln. You don't want to believe it, but your stomach still growls, and tomorrow's porridge awaits. In this living tomb, your only choice is to swallow or vanish. And today, you chose to swallow, because you still want to breathe, at least for one more night. The first morning you're honored to handle clay. You realize human hands can hurt so much. They stop being hands, just trembling slabs of raw flesh attached to your body. You're led to the workshop, if you can call it that. Really an enormous underground stone cave. Faint light from torches along the walls, casting shadows on the sculptors' faces, making everyone look like corpses, molding their own replicas. No one speaks. Only the sound of clay being pounded, hurried breaths, the scrape of knife blades against sharpening stones, and the faint moans of hands so calloused they can't tell skin from clay. You're given a clay block bigger than your head, damp, sticky, with a strange smell, not like field soil, not like the pottery clay you once worked, but like clay mixed with beef fat, dried blood, and seepage from an ancient coffin. A supervisor growls, not looking at you. Shape the left ear, size of a palm, curved 18 degrees, inner veins, sharp outer edge, for a guard statue's left side. Before you can ask, his whip cracks the air as a warning. Not right. Redo it. Not in time. Lie in the ground. You start. The clay's cold. Your hands shake. You're barely shaping it before mud coats your elbows, wrists and forehead. A worker nearby, who seems experienced, glances over and whispers, "Tip, use fresh blood to smooth the clay, but don't use your own." Though it's hard, you don't know if he's serious or joking, but minutes later, you see him prick his finger with a needle, squeeze a few drops of blood onto the clay. The clay turns smooth as rice flour. You shudder. You don't copy him, but your hands start to ache, not from holding weight, but from tendons snapping, each finger joint feeling like it's being bent backward. Clay sticks to every crevice of your nails, every unhealed scratch from last night. It feels like you're kneading your own skin into the material. Your first 8 ears are rejected, not sharp enough, uneven, looks like a lame goat's ear. For the 9th, you strain your hands, twisting the clay unnaturally, and when you show the supervisor, he nods, but says nothing. You think you've passed, until he places your ear next to a sample ear, and yours is a knuckle's length too big. No arguing, just silence, and start over. Your hands go numb, your finger joints turn purple, your thumbnail splits at the edge. You keep going. The cave never gets bright or dark, only the crackle of torches, the smell of sweat heavier than the clay, and the sunken eyes of those around you turning themselves into tools. After 6 hours, you make 18 ears. The supervisor passes by. No inspection, no reaction, just one word. Slur. One word, heavy as a boulder smashing your neck. You want to ask, why carve ears? But you know the question is pointless. You're not here to know, you're here to do. And if you don't do it right, or enough, you won't be here anymore. A scream echoes from afar. Another worker smashes a sample ear. His ears tremble. He sweats, unable to speak. The supervisor steps over, says nothing, just swings his whip, lashing his shoulder. The sound of tearing flesh is like rotting cloth. Blood flows. He collapses. No one helps. Another worker is dragged over, takes the blood-stained clay, and continues the unfinished ear. You look at your hands. They're swollen like termite-eaten bamboo. Your nails are nearly gone. You keep going. By day's end, you can't feel your fingertips. You touch clay like touching air. You touch yourself and don't know if it's skin or mud. When allowed to rest, you can't stand. You crawl back to the pit like a worm to its nest. Your hands are stiff, unable to bend. You sigh, but your heart isn't sad anymore, just empty. You just survived a day of sculpting and lost your hands completely. and that was just the left ear. Tomorrow is the right ear, then eyes, mouth, wrinkles, beard, tongue, nose, armor, fabric folds, even the soul. But today, your hands died first, and you start to understand. They don't carve statues with tools, they carve statues with themselves, piece by piece, until there's nothing left to carve, except your own corpse. You thought carving a beard would be the easiest part of making a statue, just a few curves, a few scratches, a few fake twisted beard strands stuck onto a clay chin, and done. Wrong. The beard, according to the head supervisor, is the warrior's soul, where demeanor, age, status, and absolute respect for the emperor are shown. One miscarved beard strand, a beard lacking the sword-hung under-chin aura, is an act of treason, insulting Emperor Qin Shi Huang, meaning your name is erased from the living list and added to the material list. You're given a carving knife, as small as a fingernail, sharp enough to draw blood with a slip. The clay for the beard has been blessed. They say it's mixed with the ashes of executed rebels, so the beard carries vengeance against enemies. You sit before a nearly life-sized guard statue, its body complete, head finished, eyes staring far as if watching the tomb. It only lacks a beard, and that's your job. But not just any beard. It must be wave-shaped, 3 finger joints long, thick at the base, thin at the tip, slightly curved left, as if swaying in battle's wind. Exactly 24 strands, split evenly on both sides. No more, no less, no deviation, no overlap. Each strand must feel rough yet majestic, gentle yet lethal. If you wonder how one beard strand can embody 4 contradictory traits, congratulations. You don't need to know, you just need to do it. Each time you try attaching a clay beard strand to the statue's chin, it feels like you're pasting your own life onto it. A worker beside you, on his 18th strand, is kicked out of his spot by the supervisor because his beard was slightly drooping, not confident enough. He falls, head slamming into the clay wall. Unconscious. No one approaches. He's dragged away. His statue is smashed immediately after. You look at the remaining clay crumbs, mixed with his fallen hair, and understand this isn't art. It's a survival test. You carefully shape each beard strand, curving it gently, trimming the edge with the knife, brushing it with a rabbit hair brush for living beard texture. Each touch of the clay feels like writing your last will. Your fingers tremble. Sweat drips from your chin onto the statue, making the clay wetter. The supervisor says nothing, just watches silently. He's always like that. Silent observation, then sudden execution. A light tap on the stone table signals erase from the list. You hear no tap, so you continue. You finish the final strand as your hands nearly lock from fatigue. You step back, look at the statue. 10 minutes pass. No one speaks. Then the supervisor steps forward. He touches a left side strand, the thinnest one. He squeezes it. It breaks. Everyone holds their breath. You hear your own pulse pounding like war drums. The supervisor looks down at you. He asks a question that stops you cold. You think a loyal soldier's beard is that weak. You want to kneel. You want to scream. I'll redo it. But your mouth is dry. He continues, like reciting poetry. Weak beard. Weak heart. Weak heart. Lost virtue. Lost virtue. Useless statue. You shudder. But then he turns away. No killing. No slashing. No ordering guards to seize you. He only says, redo it all, before sunset. If not done, carve your face into the statue. And he's gone. You know what that means. Fail, and you become the model, forever. You grit your teeth, scrape off all the beard you just made, feeling like you're cutting your own flesh, and start over. An old worker nearby mutters. Each beard strand is a lash whipped back into your own skin. You don't reply. You know he's right. Your hands no longer hurt. They're too numb. You work in a near unconscious state, unable to distinguish clay from bone. When you finish the second time, the sky glows red on the distant horizon. Or maybe it's just the kiln's firelight. You don't know. You only see the statue now has a beard. It looks alive. It makes the statue seem like it's about to breathe. The supervisor returns, looks, nods slightly, and leaves. Not a word. You exhale, but your heart stays cold, because you know today you survived, thanks to 24 beard strands. But tomorrow is eyes, and eyes aren't easy, because statues don't need to see, but the emperor sees everything. You've heard the rumors, of course. Everyone has. that if you carve a detail wrong, a misaligned armor fold, a slightly high nostril, a wrinkle lacking military resolve, you'll be bound, dragged past the workshop, past the kilns, past the white ash piles, past the place where no one films the rituals, to a pit just deep enough to bury someone standing. Others say they've heard final cries from there, not screams, but hoarse, weak pleas the wind refuses to carry. You thought it was just scare stories, until today. A worker in your group, who once taught you to smooth clay with the back of your hand to avoid breaking the outer layer, was tasked today with carving a guard statue's face, a highly sensitive job. The face can't be too joyful, or it resembles a traitor, can't be sad, or it lacks grandeur, can't be neutral, or it's deemed lacking spirit. It must have the look of loyalty, readiness to die, yet eternally unyielding. In other words, carve the face of a living person who looks like they're guarding their own grave with enthusiasm. Worked from morning to noon, no breaks, no water, eyes sunken, lips dry, hands shaking but still trying. When he finished, the statue was striking, face slightly tilted, sharp eyes, square jaw, commanding presence. Everyone quietly admired it, only the supervisor didn't smile. He circled the statue, nodded, then suddenly drew his carving knife from his belt and slashed the statue's mouth. A deep, cold, decisive cut. Wrong. One word. Like the drumbeat before an execution. Paled. Wrong. Where, my lord? His voice trembled, but still polite. The supervisor didn't look at him, just pointed at the gash. The mouth smirks. A soldier statue doesn't smile without orders. This is a traitor. The workshop fell silent as death. The breeze from the kiln stopped. You felt the air thicken, as if the entire space awaited a verdict. Knelt. I didn't mean it. I'll redo it. I beg. Silence. The supervisor turned away. Bind him. The pit. 2 guards stepped forward, pulling up like a sack of cloth, tying his hands with fire-hardened rope. You stepped back. Ha's eyes found yours. No resentment, no blame, just as if to say, I didn't fix the statue's mouth in time. You wanted to move forward, but your feet wouldn't budge. You're nobody, just a worker, and workers don't interfere with judgments. Ha was dragged away, no farewells, no tears, only the crunch of footsteps on dry sand, and the whip's lash urging him like funeral drums. You didn't see him buried, but you heard. They made him stand straight in the pit, eyes wide, mouth stuffed with wet clay to silence him. Then they shoveled dirt over his head, scoop by scoop, no smashing, no slashing, just burying, quietly, until only the blood-soaked crown of his head remained. Then that too was covered. 4 others were called to remake the statue from scratch, on the same clay Ha used, now dark red, with a faint fishy smell. The supervisor said, continue. New face. Don't let the traitor live again. You were assigned the right ear. As you touched the clay, you felt warmth, not from fire, but from lingering human heat. You trembled. Then, remembered yesterday, I said the right ear should tilt slightly to hear orders faster. You hear his voice, echo. Don't tilt it too much. They don't like those who obey too quickly. You carve the ear straight, just right. Not protruding, not recessed. A neutral ear. An ear that doesn't react, an ear that doesn't betray. You finish your part and step back. Something inside you dies. Not just fear, but the part of you that believed this work could just be work. From now on, every knife stroke, every carve, every clay strand you shape must be weighed as if you're cutting your own throat. And you learn another unspoken rule in this giant living tomb. Statues can be wrong, but workers never can. One mistake, line up, go to the pit. No explanation, no fixing, no forgiveness, only burial and silence, forever. This morning, as you step into the workshop, barely able to wipe your eyes because last night's sleep next to the kiln left smoke stinging your eyelids, the supervisor points to a group of workers by the head carving tables, where the torchlight burns brighter than usual, a place you've never been allowed to enter. He says, today you join the face team. You freeze. The face team is the highest and most dangerous part of the terracotta statue production line. No one is assigned to carve faces without 3 months of finger carving training, 2 months of beard shaping, and 1 month of forehead detailing. You've been here less than half a month, You think it's a mistake, but no, the supervisor nods, confirming like a death sentence. You can do it. Your face looks familiar. His words send a chill down your spine. Your face familiar. You follow the guard to the face team area. Before you are rows of clay heads, bald without ears, eyes or anything but smooth facial bones, like polished marble. Next to each clay head sits a living person, hands bound, feet tied, back rigid, head capped with an iron helmet, eyes vacant. They are the models, real people. The supervisor says, these are Imperial guards. The Emperor's order, each statue must have a unique face, no duplicates, no repeats. Real statue, real face, real spirit. You don't understand what real spirit means, but you know you're about to carve the face of a living person into a statue guarding a corpse. You're assigned a model. He looks about 30, with a long face, pointed chin, deep-set eyes, and lips twitching slightly, as if enduring invisible pain. You sit across from him, just an arm's length away. You begin. Your carving knife touches the clay, shaping the nose bridge, molding the cheekbones, measuring the space between his eyebrows. The supervisor passes by, glances, and says softly, don't carve it wrong, because once the statue's done, the model will be eliminated. You turn. Eliminated how? He shrugs, face expressionless, buried or burned, because two identical faces can't exist. Your heart feels crushed. You keep carving, hands trembling, eyes blurring. Each stroke you make is a death sentence, hovering over the man before you. He looks at you, as if wanting to say something, but his mouth is gagged with wet rope. You can't meet his eyes anymore. You only look at the clay, but the clay bears his face. At times you wonder if you carve it inaccurately. Will he be spared, or will you both be killed for failing the spirit standard? You don't know. You only know your knife is wearing down, your hands are hardening like stone, and your heart feels heavy as unbaked clay. By midday, you need to clean your knife. You go to the back of the workshop, to the water trough. As you lean down, you see your own face reflected in the water's surface, but not your face now. It's the version you glimpsed in a statue yesterday. That forehead, that nose bridge, that jawline. You step back, nearly dropping your knife. An old worker nearby sighs, saying, eventually, everyone sees their face in a statue, because in the end we're all part of the tomb. You don't dare ask more. You return to your spot, continuing to carve your model's face. When you finish, the statue looks so lifelike it could breathe. The supervisor comes, stares at the statue, then at the real model. He nods. It matches. He pulls out a notebook, crosses out a name. You don't need to ask. You know it's the name of the man across from you. He'll be eliminated today. You lower your head, but when you look up, the model is still staring at you, and his eyes, no hatred, no fear, just sadness, as if he knew all along, as if he's saying, it's not your fault, you want to believe that, but that night, you don't sleep. In the darkness of the earth pit, you see hundreds of statue faces appear, each one a piece of someone who once breathed, and among them, one looks eerily like you. You don't recall carving it, but it's smiling faintly, and you start to understand every statue has a real person's face, and sooner or later, it'll be your turn. You thought carving statues was just handwork, molding clay, shaping forms, cutting with a knife, trimming beards, crafting details. But at some point, you realize your hands are just tools. What's really being dug out, kneaded, and pressed into each layer of clay is the part inside your head, your thoughts, memories, emotions. Today, you're officially chosen for the soul transference ritual. Not everyone is selected, only those calm enough, resilient enough, sensitive enough to the spirit's force are entrusted with this sacred task. That's what the supervisor says. The old workers put it more bluntly. That's when you mold your soul into the statue. And if you mold too much, you won't get it. Sit back, you're led to a separate area behind the kilns, where there's no smoke, no carvers, no hammer sounds, just an unfinished statue, missing eyes, mouth, and heart. Beside it is a stone pedestal covered with black cloth, holding a bowl of blood, a handful of hair, and a charred bone fragment. A shaman waits for you. He's not tall, but his eyes burn fiercely, his white beard streaked with ink and spiderweb-like carvings on his hands. He looks at you like he's known you from a past life. You are the one with true hands. Now bring your heart. This statue isn't alive yet. Before you can ask, he hands you a bronze needle, longer than usual, sharp as a spear tip. Prick your blood, left hand, 3 drops, no more, no less. You obey. Blood oozes, dark and thick. He dips his finger in your blood, drawing a strange symbol on the statue's forehead. Then he traces 2 lines over the statue's eyes and turns to you. Now mold the eyes, but don't think of clay, think of the soul. You don't fully understand, but you raise your hands, you close your eyes. You try to picture someone's face you once knew, but memories fade, slipping away. The only thing that surfaces is Ham's eyes, the worker buried alive for a statue's crooked smile. His gaze in that final moment, not blaming, just regretful. You open your eyes and mold. Tiny bits of clay stick to the statue's sockets, forming eyelids, corners, pupils. You feel the statue warming. No, you must be imagining it. You keep going. The statue's mouth opens slightly. You shape the lips. You don't know where you learned this, but your hands move as if guided. When you finish, the shaman nods, then places his hand on the statue's chest. The heart lacks spirit. He takes a small inscribed wooden piece, burns it, and buries the ashes in the statue's chest. Then looks at you, breathe into it. 3 breaths, not blowing, breathing. Send your fear, your pain, the last thing keeping you alive. You lower your head, then do it. 3 breaths, 1 light, 1 deep, 1 long. Each feels like it's pulled from your gut, your heart, some nameless depth. When you finish, you look up. The statue is still, but the air around it shifts, colder, heavier. The shaman takes a small knife, cuts a shallow line on your forehead, just enough for 1 last drop of blood. He dabs it, then presses it onto the statue's forehead. The connection is complete. He looks at you, nods, and whispers, "You've transferred the soul." This statue is no longer clay, it's spirit, it's will, it's an extension of the eternal dynasty. You're allowed to leave, but as you turn to walk away, you feel the statue watching you, not with eyes, with presence, as if it knows who birthed it, as if it remembers you. That night, you can't sleep. In your dream, the statue steps out of the kiln, walks through the pit rows, and finds where you lie. It says nothing, just stands there, breathing in sync with you. You jolt awake, soaked in cold sweat, hands trembling. But it's not just fear in your heart. It's a strange emptiness, as if you left something vital inside that statue. You touch your chest. It still beats, but heavier, and you start to understand Qin Shi Huang doesn't want statues as mere shells. He wants them with souls, and you've chosen to pay the price for that. Each breath, each drop of blood, each memory, each soul transference is a piece of you dying. But no one told you this before, and now it's too late to take it back. Noon at the worksite is always a strange moment. The sun never reaches the camp's depths, but the heat seems compressed underground, seeping into every brick, every lump of clay, every laboring lung. After this morning's soul transference, your mouth is dry as kiln ash, your throat burns like you swallowed a handful of knives, and your head spins from blood loss. You need water. But here, water isn't for drinking. Water is a high-stakes survival choice, like stepping blindly into a kiln and hoping you're a statue, not fuel. You drag yourself to the water well, a deep pit dug ages ago, no one knows when, topped with a large jar covered by a tattered, stained tarp. The water guard sits beside it, eyes yellow like a snake's, chewing a piece of wood he never swallows, hand always resting on a stone-carved knife. He doesn't speak, just nods when you hold out your bowl. He lifts the tarp, scoops water from the jar, and pours it into your bowl. The first smell isn't water, it's metal, rust, dried blood, and an indescribable cold odor, like freshly dug grave dirt, still warm. You look at the water. It's clear, but not truly. There's a shimmering film, maybe silver dust from grinding stones, maybe oil from dead men's hair. Sometimes a strand of hair floats, sometimes tiny bubbles rise, like broth from unfiltered bones. Some say this well once stored the blood of buried workers. No one dares confirm, but everyone drinks. Because if you don't, you die. If you do, you can only hope. You close your eyes, tilt your head, and pour the water into your mouth. The first sensation is cold, cold as melting ice from a mountain's base, then numbness. The water slides down your throat like a lazy snake, leaving a lingering chill to your stomach. You cough dryly, then exhale, still alive. But for how long? An old worker nearby whispers, "Don't drink too much. Each drop is someone else's memory." You don't want to believe it. But last night, after drinking, you dreamed you were lying in a burial pit, someone piling dirt on your face, and a voice calling your name came from your own. Now you ask, no other water source? He laughs dryly. There is, but it's for mixing clay. You fall silent. Clean water is the statue's privilege. The living get old statue's water. They say the well water holds the lingering spirit of workers who died here, making you endure better. Superstition? Maybe. But when you see another worker vomit black blood moments after drinking, collapsing in the courtyard, muttering, "I haven't finished the nose. Not done," you start to wonder if this water carries the souls of the dead. Does each sip mean you're sharing their memories, pain, and despair? The supervisor never drinks. He carries a private leather flask from the capital, filled with water filtered through river sand and incense ash. He calls the workers' water blood drink and forbids wasting it. "Drink or die of thirst," he says. You keep drinking, but each gulp is a negotiation with your conscience. Once, after drinking, you saw a clear face in your mind, a young woman, hair in a bun, hollow cheeks, sad eyes. You'd never met her. But hours later, while carving a rare female guard statue, your hands shaped that face. Hair in a bun, hollow cheeks, sad eyes. When done, you felt lighter, as if you'd returned something. And then you realized that face might have belonged to a dead worker, and by drinking the water, you carried a piece of their soul to live a little longer. Curse or blessing, you don't know. Only that today's water might have been yesterday's worker's blood, and tomorrow, someone else might drink you. In water, in clay, in statues. In this bottomless tomb, no one truly dies. They just change form, from person to material, and water, just a medium. You drink, you live, but who's living in you? You're not sure anymore, and you don't dare ask. The inspection happens on the 7th morning of your second work week, when your hands are hard as stone, your joints creak with each bend, and your nails are barely intact. You get no warning, no notice, no posted list. Just a morning, as you're washing your carving knife by the trough, the supervisor passes by and juts his chin. You follow me. You stand, hands still wet, no time to wipe. He leads you to a sealed room behind the workshop, where torchlight glints like cat's eyes, and a large, soft, wet clay block sits on a stone table, covered with an oiled cloth. Beside it is a sample left ear, not big, not small, but detailed down to the veins. Before you can ask, the supervisor says, "Task. Mold 50 left ears, identical to this. Size, shape, curve, inner folds, outer veins, tilt angle, all of it. Not identical, redo. More than 3 wrong, you're done." You swallow hard. Done doesn't mean going home, it means done breathing. You sit, hands still trembling from last night's nightmare, mind filled with images of statues opening their eyes and well water with memories. But now, all that is pushed back for a brutal reality. 50 left ears, each one is a life. You start. The first takes 15 minutes. You measure, shape, trim edges. It looks decent, but compared to the sample, your ear tilts too much. The second is faster, but the inner ridge is shallow. The third breaks. You want to scream, but no one screams in the inspection room, only silence, the sound of knife on clay, hurried breaths, and time grinding like a dull sore on bone. By the 10th ear, you think you're getting it. By the 20th, your hands are numb. By the 30th, you can't feel the clay anymore, as if molding with 2 dead sticks. The supervisor returns after 2 hours. He picks up each ear, holds it under the torch, compares it to the sample, nods, shakes. Each shake is a knife to your heart. He stops at the 32nd ear, looks at you. The outer vein curves too much. Redo from the start. You gape. Redo, all of them. He raises an eyebrow. Or would you rather make an ear for yourself? You bow your head. You dismantle each ear you made, kneading them back. Slowly, like crushing yourself. You start again. This time, you don't think. You don't measure, don't estimate. You let your hands move, as if they remember better than your eyes, as if the clay knows the way. Sweat soaks your collar, drips onto the clay, mixing with each layer. One by one, The ears take shape like prints. By the 45th, you dry heave. Your stomach's empty. But you don't stop. 46, 47, 48. Each is a silent prayer. 49. Finally, the 50th. You don't recall how you made it. Only that, when you place it on the tray, your fingers automatically scrape the edge, identical to the sample. The supervisor returns, inspects again, nods, shakes. You don't dare breathe. When he sets down the 50th ear, he nods slightly. Pass. You nearly collapse from relief. But he doesn't leave. He steps closer, looks you up and down, then asks, "Do you know why the left ear?" You shake your head. Because the left ear hears the emperor's orders. The right ear hears your heart. But statues don't need hearts. They only need obedience. You shudder. Then he leans down, picks up one of your ears, holds it close to his face. You seem to carve obedience well, so tomorrow, carve the heart. And he leaves. You slump, hands still shaking. But your heart is ice cold, because now you know, each part you carve isn't just a body piece. It's a piece of a brutal philosophy. Statues must resemble people, but can't have human hearts. And you're being forced to turn yourself into a statue. One ear at a time, one drop of soul per knife stroke. And if one day you err, just one miscurved vein, you won't need to carve anymore, because you'll be carved, in clay, in silence, forever. You're assigned to mold eyes on the 18th day, when your senses are so muddled that the smell of clay mixed with blood becomes the default air, when sweat has dried into salt crust on your skin, when your hands are no longer hands but two tools moving by survival instinct. Carving eyes is considered the true soul of a statue, not because it's technically hard, eyes are just two simple hollows, but because they carry meaning. A statue may not speak, hear, or move, but it must know how to see its master, its enemies, posterity, and you, the one who carved it. The supervisor doesn't need to remind you of its importance. Do it well. A statue can forgive a crooked nose or missing lip detail, but eyes without spirit, the whole block gets smashed. That's what Zhao, an old worker who carved for the tomb's deepest layer, says. He tells you when carving eyes, don't just think of eyeballs or sockets, but recall a moment you were so scared you couldn't breathe, when someone's gaze froze you. Carve that look, he says, and the statue will live. And you carve. As your fingers touch the pupil area, the clay feels strangely soft, not damp, not pliable, but like living flesh, waiting to be sliced. You gently shape the upper eyelid, curve the lower rim, then use a sharp stick to dot the pupil's center. In that moment, you swear you see yourself reflected in the statue's eyes, not darkness, not torchlight, but you. Leaning closer, you see the statue's eyes glint, as if a film of water spreads in the clay sockets. You step back, startled. The supervisor glances over, says nothing, just nods slightly. It means you did it right. It means the statue has opened its eyes. It means you've carved a pair of eyes that can see. But that night, you can't sleep. Every time you close your eyes, those clay eyes reappear, wide open, unmoving, staring without blinking. You turn to the pit wall, cover your eyes with your hands, but still see that gaze in your mind, as if the statue hasn't left you since you left the workshop. At midnight, you bolt upright. In the thick darkness, you sense something present in the pit. No sound, no breath, just a gaze. You turn and see a figure in the corner. No, a statue's shadow, but statues aren't brought to the pits. They stay in the kilns. So what's standing there? You don't dare blink, not until the pit's torch is replaced. Its faint light, revealing it's just a clay sack under a cloth. But your heart doesn't calm, because those eyes, the ones you carved, are burned into your brain. The next morning, you ask Zhao, why do I feel the statue is watching me? He chews slowly, then answers, because the statue remembers the face of its carver. It has only two things, its eyes and the memory of the first hand that touched it. You ask, memory? Do statues have memories? He replies, why do you think the supervisor forbids carving two identical statues? Because statues can recognize each other, and they can recognize you. From then on, you carve more eyes. Each statue has a different gaze, some cold as metal, some soft as ash, some hateful, some desperate, but all share one thing, they don't forget. You, however, start to forget. Forget to eat, to sleep, to speak, you only remember the statue's eyes. Each morning, you touch your face, checking if your eyes are still human or have become silent clay hollows. One night, you dream a statue steps from the kiln, looks at you, and speaks in your voice. You gave me eyes. Now I see the world through you. You wake, back soaked in sweat, eyes stinging. From then on, you avoid looking directly at any statue. You lower your gaze while working, using only your hands, avoiding their faces, their eyes. But you know, even if you don't look, the statues are watching you. When you sleep, when you eat, when you think of escaping, and especially when you start forgetting who you are. Because once you've carved your first pair of eyes, you'll never sleep soundly again. You traded peace for creating a gaze. And from then on, every sleepless night is a night you hear the statue call your name in silence. No one says it out loud. No law is officially written, but everyone knows. Anyone who escapes the camp doesn't vanish. They return, not in flesh, but in another form, silent, nameless, eternal. They become part of a statue, not the proud head or sturdy torso, but the base, the foundation, the trodden clay, the part no one sees but bears the weight of eternity. Every camp has at least one fool who thinks of escaping. In your camp, that was Liu, a skilled hand carver. Quick, quiet, rarely speaking, but his eyes always looked far, as if he was never truly here. You once shared half a bowl of watery porridge with him on a freezing night, and he said, "If I get the chance, I'll run. I'd rather die in the forest than be molded into some soulless statue's beard." You didn't reply, because you knew there was no forest, only barren desert and guards with hunting dogs. 3 days later, Liu was gone. No one reported it, no one called his name, no one organized a search. The supervisor came, eyes calm, mouth slightly smiling. New clay. The next morning, a cavalry statue was brought to the kiln, 3 times larger than a regular soldier statue. The horse reared high, front hooves raised, the rider leaning with a swinging sword, a masterpiece. And you were assigned to make its base, the clay under the 4 hooves. When you lifted the cloth cover, the clay was pre-mixed, soft, smooth, but strange. It wasn't like normal clay, deep red, like mud after a storm, with a fishy smell like raw meat left out. You touched it, feeling warmth rise from within. Not fire's warmth, but the warmth of something that once had a pulse. Another worker whispered behind you, "Don't ask. It's him, Li." You wanted to deny it, but couldn't. You saw a half-burned scrap of cloth in the clay, like the scarf he tied around his neck, a black hair strand, caught in the clay, unmistakable. You gripped the clay, nausea rising, but your hands had to work. You spread the clay evenly under the horse's hooves, smoothed it, packed it down. Each strike was a farewell. No one could speak. You muttered his name in your head, like a prayer for the dead, but you couldn't linger. The supervisor stood behind, cold. "Hurry, this statue will stand before the Emperor's shrine. He wants it to rest on a traitor's remains." Traitor, a light word for someone who wanted to live. You kept working, each pressed handful of clay, like an apology you could never say. That night, in your dream, you were a horse statue. You stood among hundreds of others, hooves on cold clay, feeling someone still breathing beneath. Liu, lying there, silent, but eyes wide, staring through the clay, up at you, not blaming, not resenting, just asking, "What are you waiting for?" You woke, soaked in cold sweat. Then you realized, this wasn't the first time. The camp had lost others before. You'd molded clay with that same smell. Many statues might carry the flesh and bone of those before you. Maybe one day, you too will become a base layer, a cheekbone, a sword-gripping finger. It's just not your turn yet. The supervisor once said, "Nothing is wasted. A traitor's body serves eternity." That's their final redemption. From then on, you stopped seeing statue bases as mere clay. They're unmarked graves. You start to realize each statue isn't just made of baked clay. It's made of people, each one who dreamed of escape, hoped, failed, and those still alive must tread on those sacrifices to finish their work. You keep working, not out of resignation, but because there's no way out. In this camp, even death doesn't let you escape, because when you die, they'll need you again, press you down, bury you under a statue, to serve the emperor for another 1,000 years, in silence, in a bowed posture, and in the cold base of a horse that never stopped. You always thought that if you did well, if your hands didn't tremble, your eyes didn't falter, if every armor fold, every beard strand, every vein on a statue's hand met the standard, then maybe, just maybe, you'd live a little longer. You didn't hope for rewards or praise, only to survive another day, without your name called at dusk. But one morning, the supervisor stares at you longer than usual. No shouting, no nodding, just staring. And when you think he's about to order someone buried, he says, "Your hands are good. They have spirit. They can do great things." A short sentence, but in the heavy air of the camp, it rings like a bell of glory. Other workers glance at you. Some eyes hold envy, some are silent. You don't know how to react, until the supervisor continues. "Prepare. Tomorrow you start on an elephant statue." Elephant statue. Those two words hit like a boulder, because you've heard of them. Elephant statues aren't like soldier statues, not as tall but far larger, 100 times more complex. Trunk, tusks, ears, leg veins, muscles, saddle, expression, all must be harmonious, massive, majestic, but not crude, not off, not alive. Because if an elephant statue looks too alive, it displeases the emperor. Real elephants are for riding, statues are only for guarding. You have 3 days, the supervisor says. No sleep, no rest. Finish, then eat. Before you can ask, you're pushed to a corner of the workshop. There, a clay block, half the size of a house, waits. Beside it, a wooden blueprint details every skin fold on the elephant's trunk. You look at the clay. It's alive. You're sure it just moved. Not clay. A test. A death sentence. You begin. Day 1. You shape the legs. 4 legs, each as thick as a stone pillar, each taking nearly half a day. Your hands swell. Blood seeps from your palms. You use clay to staunch it. At night, no sleep. A guard stands beside you, whip in hand, lashing, if your hands slow. You mold the elephant's back, all night. You can't tell sweat from tears, or tears from old, undried blood. On the second day, you shape the head. The elephant's ears are wide as fans, heavy yet thin, prone to breaking. You finish one, but the other collapses, because the clay core is weak. Redo it. The supervisor comes, says nothing, just leaves a bowl of water from the ox trough. Murky, yellow, metallic smelling. You drink it, like drinking life. By the second night, you don't know who you are. You shape the tusks, in a sleepwalking trance, hands pausing mid-motion, as you forget what you're doing, but the tusks get done. You wonder if Liu saw you now, would he call you a tame elephant? But you know, here, tameness is survival. On the third day, you craft the final detail. The elephant's eyes, 2 deep, sunken sockets, slightly sad, slightly fierce. You carve them, as if carving your own gaze from 3 months ago, when you were first dragged to the camp, still naive, still wondering if this was temporary. When you set down the knife, the sun peeks through a mounting crevice. 3 days, no sleep, no food, no words, but you did it. The supervisor arrives. He circles the statue, touches the skin, taps the legs, strokes the tusks. He stops at the eyes, then nods. Once. Good. Take it to the kiln. You collapse like a felled tree, not just from exhaustion, but because you know you just survived a death sentence disguised as honor. Other workers are called to carry the statue. You lie there, back against the ground, watching dust rise with their steps. And you think, if you do even better, next time you might be assigned a dragon statue. But dragons have sharp claws, and if you carve them wrong, those claws might pierce your own heart. You close your eyes, can't sleep yet, but at least you don't have to stand for 3 more days. In this camp, sometimes the greatest reward is not dying in glory. A cracked statue is taboo, not because it's ugly, not because it's wasted effort, but because in Qin Shi Huang's tomb, anything cracked means a leaking soul. A small crack on a guard statue's forehead signals an unsealed spirit. A crack at an elephant statue's foot could be seen as an omen of betrayal. A crack on a royal guard statue's neck, that's treason, defilement, a death sentence. And today, you stand before a cracked statue, not one you made, but you're the closest when the crack is found. A long, thin line angles from temple to near the mouth, like an unwanted scar across a face once praised as worthy of the dynasty's spirit. The supervisor notices first. He doesn't yell, he just stares, a stare lasting 3 breaths. Then he turns to you. Who molded the face? You don't remember, or rather, you do, but you're not sure. It could be you, could be the old worker toil, could be both. Faces often require teamwork, but here no one admits, because whoever does, leaves, not to go home, but to follow the statue. You look at Tal. The old man meets your eyes, silent, but his gaze says something like, "You're younger, and you understand." You step forward, bow. "It was me." No one praises your courage. No one quietly thanks you. The supervisor just nods, ordering guards to take you for spirit form inspection. Spirit form inspection is a polite way of saying they're checking if you've defiled the tomb's spiritual vein. Your hands are bound, and you're dragged to the kiln area, to a small wall niche with a stone pedestal and a headless statue. They make you kneel beside it. A shaman arrives, smearing mud on your forehead, chanting ancient words in a hiss. Then he touches your neck, exactly where the crack on the statue ends. You're ice cold. He turns to the supervisor. Weak spirit. The crack reflects an unstable soul, not intentional, but needs purification. You don't know what purification means until you're thrown into a mud pit near the kiln. Not deep, but thick. You're submerged for an hour. The mud is mixed with human ash, blood, and sand. You can't breathe through your nose, can't open your eyes, or you'll go blind. Mud seeps into your mouth, ears, every open wound. You feel yourself dissolving, like clay, like a statue. When pulled out, you're not you anymore. Your skin is pale as lime, hands trembling, ears ringing, but the statue is still cracked, and the supervisor hasn't forgotten. He orders, redo the entire face, and guess who's assigned? You, hands still wet, eyes barely clear. But you must remake the part just deemed lacking spirit. You mold, in a daze. Clay mixes with mud still stuck in your nail crevices. Each knife stroke sends pain shooting to your brain, and you know, if this statue cracks again, there won't be a second chance. No more mud pits to soak in, just a bottomless burial pit. You finish the face as the sky turns ash grey. The supervisor returns. He inspects every detail, taps the statue's forehead with his knife. No sound. Good. Then he looks at you. Fine, but remember, a statue can crack from weather, firing, clay, but if it cracks because of a person, the person cracks first. You nod, hands still shaking. That night, you dream your head splits like molded clay, half flesh and bone, half wet clay, both cracked. And in the dream, you hear the supervisor's voice echo. You must not crack before the statue. You must stay whole until the statue lives. You wake with a sharp pain from forehead to neck. You touch your skin, feeling a small crack. Not deep, but you know the real crack isn't on your skin. It's in your head, in your thoughts, in the sanity you're losing bit by bit. Each time a statue cracks, your mind fractures more. And there'll come a time when you won't know what's you, what's statue. Just silent breaks, waiting to shatter in the dark. The ritual begins before dawn, when dew still clings to the kiln's tiled roof like frozen tears, and the guard's footsteps echo steadily in the thick darkness. You're woken by a kick to your side. No reason given, no explanation, just a curt order from the supervisor. Time for the seal transfer. You don't know what seal transfer is, but you know any ritual here involving transfer doesn't end with you returning whole. You're led to a small underground room behind the main statue area, where the air smells of burnt cinnamon mixed with dried blood, clay, and something familiar yet terrifying, burnt bone. In the room's center is a stone pedestal with an unfinished statue, its body complete, but head lacking eyes, mouth, heart. On its forehead is a square indent, the spot for the spirit seal. An old showman stands beside the statue, holding a small dragon-carved jade piece, his eyes not on you but through you, as if you're just cold air between worlds. He holds a knife, not long, not thick, but its blade so sharp you hear your skin tear before it touches. A small cut on your left palm, not deep, but enough for blood to drip. No one offers a bandage. No one asks if it hurts. The shaman catches your blood in a small clay cup, stirring it with a wilted mugwort stalk. When the blood thickens, he dips his finger in, drawing on the statue's forehead. Each stroke resembles an ancient symbol, unreadable, but you feel something shift in the room. Temperature drops. Air grows heavier, not from dew, but from presence. Each time the shaman's blood-dipped finger traces a line, you feel something slip away. Not blood, but a piece of memory. You can't recall your mother's name. You don't remember your home's smell. You don't know why you once cried. Finally, he draws the same symbol on your forehead. Connected, he says, handing you a small brush. Now breathe the soul. One breath. You hesitate. What breath? He looks at you, for the first time with a hint of pity. The last breath of the part of you that's still human. You breathe, one long breath, into the statue's chest. It has no mouth, but you swear its chest rises and falls, not strongly, but enough to make you step back. You don't dare look long. The shaman tells you to go, but before you leave, he adds, you'll feel weak for days. That's because your blood still clings to its forehead. If it breaks, the soul returns to you. If not, you lose what you gave forever. You leave, face pale, legs leaden. That night, you burn with fever. Cold sweat seeps like water from pressed clay. You dream you stand before the sealed statue. It steps forward. No mouth, no words, but you hear it in your head. I am you. You wake, mouth bitter as ash. The next day, the statue is moved to the kiln, but you can't work. You can't stand steady. Each step rings like a bell in your skull. Each breath dissolves a drop of your soul. Other workers look at you strangely. They know those who transfer the seal aren't just workers. They're bridges, unfinished sacrifices. Every statue holds someone's blood. Every carved line holds someone's trembling fear. And you're now part of that statue. If it's ever unearthed, brought to light, someone will ask, who made it? And though no one knows your name, your blood will remain, dried on the clay forehead, like an indelible script. You may not live to see it, but the statue will stand, forever. And you, though dissolved in the earth, will be the ink writing a soul for a century, not your own. Day after day, as you mold clay, carve details, and craft terracotta statues for Qin Shi Huang's tomb, an invisible enemy slowly kills you. Not whips, not sharp blades, but the most seemingly harmless thing, clay dust. The clay here isn't like the clay you knew outside. It's mixed from hundreds of layers of soil, ash, and the decayed remains of unlucky bodies, fallen workers, escapees ground into mud. When you need it, the clay clings to your skin, seeping into hand crevices, under nails, into tiny wounds you didn't notice. The fine clay dust, coating your face, nose and mouth, daily, slowly strangles your lungs. You start coughing dryly, fits that make others glance back while you work, but no one cares. Just clay dust cough, an old worker says, eyes cloudy, voice raspy like rocks sliding down a cliff. More die from lung rot here than from being beaten to death. Your skin crawls. One day, a worker named Cuff offed bright red blood in the workshop. They take him to a sealed room, where few come and go, and he's gone in days. No funeral, no tears, just clay covering his face and the hammer pounding a new statue. So you try not to think about it, but your lungs ache. Each deep breath feels like a knife slicing your chest. You're tired, lifeless, and each morning's waking is a battle between will and body. One night, in the pit, you hear the steady snores of your fellow workers, but no one truly sleeps. You hear prolonged coughs in the dark, the wheezing of the dying, and your own gasping breaths, painful, desperate. You realize your fight isn't against an external enemy, but the dust on your skin, in your lungs, mixed with dried blood, eating away your cells. You think of the statues you've made, the faces you've carved, and wonder what part of you is trapped forever in that clay. An old worker named Harve once said, "This dust is a silent death sentence. It seeps into your lungs, stops your heart bit by bit, and you don't even know." You look at those around you, growing paler, thinner, like dried corpses. Everyone carries an invisible sadness, the sadness of knowing you're dying but can't stop. No medicine, no doctors, no miracles. Just clay and the red-hot kiln each night. You cough more, sometimes spitting black blood, making others shy away, fearing contagion. But you can't rest. Rest is starvation. Starvation is instant death. So you dive back into work, molding clay, shaping faces, carving beards with exhaustion weighing heavier on your shoulders. One afternoon, you see a freshly fired statue, light glinting off its hot clay surface, and wonder how long you can last before becoming like it, rigid, breathless, lifeless. You look around, see dozens of workers, coughing, faces pale, eyes vacant. No one can talk long. Everyone silently knows each day here is borrowed time. Once, you overhear the supervisor whisper to the shaman, a new batch of lung-rotted workers is coming. Prepare replacements. You don't dare ask why, you just know you must endure. Lungs aching, hands trembling, legs sore, but you keep molding statues, because if you don't, you'll have nothing left to mold for the rest of your life. Clay doesn't just kill more quietly than spears, whips, or blades. It steals your breaths, your sleep, the last scraps of your soul. You understand there's no surviving here, only allowed to exist a little longer. And you keep molding statues with the hands and breath of someone slowly vanishing in dust and wordless terror. You don't know when it began, but each time you pick up the knife to carve a statue, you're not just shaping clay, you're giving away a piece of your soul. At first you saw statues as clay, baked clay, lifeless lumps molded to strict imperial standards. But in moments of solitude, you start feeling something strange. The statues seem alive, thinking, feeling every touch of your hand. Each line you carve on a statue's face isn't just a cut in clay, but a deep mark on your soul, stripping away your peace, the boundary between man and object. You feel your pain, memories, fears no longer belong to you, but are being eroded by the statue. Some nights, you wake at midnight, seeing hundreds of statue faces staring at you in the dark with teary eyes, silently demanding to share your burden. Those faces aren't strangers, but faint reflections of you, of other workers who touched the clay and vanished in the carving process. You start dreaming you're no longer the carver, but the clay being molded, rigid under your own knife. The line between you and the statue blurs until you don't know if you're man or statue. Each wrinkle, beard strand, or hair you add to the clay feels like a piece of you being torn off and entrusted to the statue. And you wonder, if a statue is unearthed one day, will you still exist in this body, or only in the statue's lines, eyes, and artificial breath? You're scared of losing yourself. But in this labor camp, fear isn't for sharing, it's for hiding deep in your heart. Everyone around you stays silent, knowing that speaking out could be seen as madness, weakness, or betrayal. You look at those you once worked with, now just withered shadows, empty eyes, and forced smiles on soulless statues they left behind. They, like you, left a piece of themselves in each statue. You feel each knife stroke cutting into your veins and mind. Each piece of clay, you mold a fragment of crumbling memory. You're terrified that the statue, not you, controls your fate with the lines on its clay face. You're a puppet, limbs moving unconsciously, mind locked in an endless loop of work, pain, fear, and despair. But you keep working, because not working is death. Being erased from the worker list, vanishing without a trace, becoming material for another statue. In that solitude, you find a strange empathy with the statues you carve. You realize you're not just losing your soul, the statues are eroding it, a perverse cycle no one escapes. You feel you've become part of the statue, no longer a worker, no longer human, but a soul trapped in clay, frozen in an unmoving face, ruled by a long-dead king through soulless statues. You wonder if your soul will ever be freed, or will it remain in the clay, in the cold, baked eyes of a statue? And when the torch's faint light hits the face of the statue you just finished, you see a distorted copy of yourself, a shadow you can't shed. In the camp's stifling silence, you realize you're not just a statue carver, you're a soul devoured by the statues you create. You've traded yourself, bit by bit, to build an immortal world, a world not for the living. Your day begins when faint light seeps through a rock crevice, not enough to rouse your exhausted body, but enough to signal another round of torment. You wake in the stifling pit, on filthy dirt and rotting straw, crammed with dozens of others in darkness and stench. No birdsong, no sounds of life, just the panting breaths of fellow sufferers. You stand, frozen feet, touching the hard, cold ground, each step a monumental effort as your body wastes away from time and work. Breakfast is a bowl of thick, rancid porridge, smelling of the tomb, scooped hastily and eaten in silence, as no one has the heart to talk. Then you're led to the worksite, where terracotta statues take shape, their soulless faces heavy with pressure. Your hands resume their task, kneading clay, molding ears, carving eyes, trimming beards, repetitive motions until you can't tell day from night, fatigue from life. You work under the unrelenting gaze of supervisors, who allow no mistakes, treating your life as a commodity traded for the statue's eternity. Amid the labor, you start coughing, dry coughs, coughing blood, the sound like a death knell echoing through the workshop. But you can't rest. Rest is instant death. No food, no water, no place to lie. You push through, stifling coughs, clinging to the last scraps of strength to keep working. At times you fade, limbs no longer yours, mind spinning, lost in a dreamlike haze with no end. You collapse amid clay and statues, are dragged up without mercy, shoved to a workshop corner, where you crawl back to the pit, the only place called home, though it's a damp, dark mass grave. There, you lie dazed on the cold ground, unable to close your eyes, unable to sleep soundly, as bone-chilling cold and relentless fleas and bugs gnaw your skin. But you can't stay long. Soon the supervisor urges you up, back to the worksite, back to work. And that cycle, eat, mold, cough, faint, crawl to the pit, repeat, becomes habit, instinct. You no longer know if you're living or have become part of the clay statues you create. This isn't just work, it's a wordless survival fight, no escape, where each passing day is a struggle to hold on to a breath and the last shred of humanity in your broken body. You look around, see dozens of tired, indifferent faces, eyes full of despair, fellow souls trapped in this statue camp, enduring an endless day together. You tell yourself, just survive today, just avoid the living burial pit, just live one more sleepless night, and it's a victory. Then, as night falls, as the kiln's hum fades, as the camp quiets to the steady breaths of the weary, you lie on the cold ground, preparing for another day of relentless torment. In your heart a question echoes, will tomorrow be different, or just a repeat of today's nightmare? But you can't answer, because the only answer is, wait and keep going. Rumors in the statue camp spread like fire through dry straw, growing denser and more unsettling than the damp, moldy clay, mixed with the smell of dried blood, rising in layers from the workshop. They say that for a statue to last, to truly have a soul, it requires not just skilled hands and a breath of life, but sacrificial clay mixed with the remains of those buried within the statue's core. Those who escape, die mysteriously, or are chosen as offerings don't simply lose their lives. They dissolve into the clay, into the statue, becoming an inseparable part of the eternal figure. At first, you didn't believe it. You thought it was just a story made up to scare people, to keep would-be escapes, too afraid to run, and obediently working. But when you saw a newly fired cavalry statue, with a base of deep red clay, unusually thick, and with a strange fishy smell, you began to doubt. An old worker whispered to you, "That's clay from the body of Liu, the one who tried to escape." A chill ran down your spine as you touched that clay, feeling an unnatural warmth, not from the kiln's fire. The whispers spread, slowly turning into assertions that those who die in the camp are never buried normally. They're contributed to the statues, to the Emperor's eternity. The ultimate price for immortality isn't a soul, it's a body. Those who disobey become sacrificial clay, infusing the statues with sacred spirit. You hear chilling tales of people vanishing in the night, their fates unknown to most, only a few aware they were taken to deep clay pits, their remains later mixed into statues. Some say the clay from these pits is dark red, smelling faintly of bodies not fully decomposed. Some workers claim they've heard breathing or crying from the clay being kneaded. This isn't just superstition, it's a hard-to-deny truth. When a statue damaged during firing isn't just destroyed, but its base clay is remixed, meaning the soul within is shattered too. You start to realize these statues aren't mere decorations or guardians. They're secret graves, resting places for thousands of unrested souls. And you, with every carve, every kneaded piece of clay, aren't just working with material, but aiding a mystical ritual, an endless cycle blurring life and death. When you ask the supervisor about it, he only laughs coldly, his eyes like the kiln's fire. If you want the statue to live forever, it needs the seed of life from those who've died. No one is allowed to question or resist. Speak too much, and you're branded a secret heretic, dealt with mercilessly. But deep inside, a question grows: are those souls truly freed, or are they forever trapped in the clay, in the baked forms of immortal statues? Can you escape that fate, or are you just another brick in this eternal wall? You look around the workshop, seeing pale-faced workers, hands calloused and wounded, eyes empty of hope. You understand the rumors aren't just stories, they're prophecies. And the day you're chosen to become sacrificial clay isn't far off. In this statue camp, death isn't the end, it's a transformation. You don't know if you're still alive, or have long since become part of a statue. But you know, if a statue is to live forever, it needs a true soul, and the truest soul can only come from people like you. You don't know exactly when it happened, but one day, you realize you're no longer human, not literally, but in the way you can't distinguish yourself from the clay statue you're carving. That morning, you're ordered to stand as the model for the latest general statue, a weighty honor reserved for the chosen. You don't know if being chosen is a privilege or a curse. You're told to stand still, in a majestic pose, no moving, no speaking, no heavy breathing, and most importantly, no looking down at the ground. You stand there, arms limp, eyes gazing far, trying to stay calm, but your body reacts strangely. Your knees ache, your back is exhausted, and your eyes, though you try not to blink, feel like they're tearing up. You're not allowed to cry or groan. You know that if you flinch, you'll be punished, or worse, become a true statue, unable to return to the living world. The other workers look at you, not with empathy, but with cold eyes, knowing that standing as a model means you've stepped to the edge. Standing still for hours, you feel yourself merging with the clay statue. Your skin starts drying like the statue's surface. Your heart beats slower, your breath grows heavy and lifeless. You wonder, can a statue have a soul without vitality? And can you survive as you turn into a statue? Your hands tremble, your feet freeze, and whispers from old statues echo in your mind. Let yourself become us. You hear footsteps nearby, see the supervisor watching you with an expressionless face, eyes cold as ice. He calls a carver and orders, start carving. Don't let anyone know you're about to vanish. As the carver approaches, you feel each gentle knife cut into your flesh, each layer of clay added to your fingers, your face's contours. You no longer feel pain, just a spreading numbness. You slip into a dreamlike state, unable to tell yourself from the statue. As your eyes blur, your face loses expression. Half of you is still human, half is already clay. The whispers in your head grow clearer. Accept it. Be immortal. You want to resist, to scream, but no sound comes. The voice in your head grows louder, overtaking your consciousness, pulling you into a state you can't wake from. You look at your hands. They're no longer hands but part of the statue, rigid, soulless. Your chest feels heavy, as if an invisible stone presses down, stopping your heart from beating normally. You realize you've become part of the statue before even knowing you were still alive. And the most terrifying thing here isn't becoming a statue. It's not knowing if you're still human, or just clay molded from memories and pain. You recall the statue faces you've carved, every detail, every line, and realize they all reflect a part of you, a part of those who've been lost. You're no longer an individual, but a piece in the tomb's vast puzzle, a soul trapped in clay. In that moment, you stand on the fragile line between life and death, human and statue, present in eternity. You wonder, is anyone outside the tomb's gates remembering you? Or are you just a forgotten name in the endless list of immortal statues? You feel lonely, not the loneliness of the living, but of one who's vanished. You can't close your eyes, fearing it's your last connection to this world, but you can't keep them open too long, as the light reveals the emptiness in your soul. And when the supervisor orders you to the temporary restroom, you know tomorrow you won't stand there anymore. You'll become a statue, and the statue will live in your place. In the tomb's darkness, you've become an immortal statue, living in cold silence, bearing a human form but no soul. and you realize the immortality Qin Shi Huang sought isn't life, it's disappearance, disappearance in eternal existence. That night, as the camp sinks into exhausted sleep, with only the faint glow of the clay kilns, you can't close your eyes. The kiln, where statues, body parts, and clay mixed with flesh and bone are fired, suddenly feels more alive than ever in your imagination. You sit nearby, trying to count each crackle of the fire, each long hiss of heat tearing through the air. Then, you hear a strange sound, soft like a sigh from inside the kiln. At first, you think it's the wind or fire, but it grows clearer, like whispers of souls trapped in baked clay. The whispers have no words, no language, just a jumble of sounds like wind through mountain crevices, waves lapping at rocks, but also like the choked cries of those who died unknown. You lean close to the kiln's vent, wanting to hear more, to understand what's happening. But instead of voices, you feel a hot breath pass over your face, like the exhale of someone just alive, just dead, pleading for you to listen. You shudder, step back. Part of you wants to run, to leave it all behind. But another part, stranger, keeps you glued to the kiln. You want to know the truth, what's hidden in that blazing fire. As the night deepens, the whispers grow clearer. They're like echoes of the past, of workers, escapees, victims burned in this kiln. You imagine them calling your name, telling their stories, sending an invisible message through the flames and dust. You don't know if you're in shock, but suddenly, you feel the statue eyes. You've finished watching you from the dark, as if communicating in a language only souls understand. In the camp's deadly silence, you sense a strange bond with the terracotta statues, an unbreakable, inescapable connection. You see yourself not just as a carver, but a bearer of memories, pain, and loneliness of thousands who were here. You start asking, are souls truly pinned in these statues? Are those whispers their laments, their pleas for release? You know the answer isn't simple, but a fear grows in you. The fear that one day, you too will become part of the kiln, part of an immortal statue, trapped in eternal silence with no way back. And as you look at the flickering flames, you see yourself at the threshold of life and death, where the line between worlds is thinner than ever. You tell yourself, maybe this isn't just a job, but a curse you've been pulled into, with no escape. And in the kiln's whispers, you hear one thing clearest: you're not alone, but you also know that companionship isn't salvation. It's the shadow of death stalking you, every second, every minute, without rest. You sit there, silently listening to the whispers, feeling the fire's heat, and know that from now on, your life will never be peaceful again. You've entered the realm of immortal statues, where life and death intertwine, and you'll forever be bound to clay and fire, an unbreakable bond. A newly fired statue is the most beautiful and terrifying moment of the day, the instant when clay, fire, and human merge into one, but also when the line between life and death blurs beyond recognition. The large kiln door is opened by human strength, heat surging out, carrying the acrid smell of ash and damp clay. A freshly fired cavalry statue is placed on a wooden cart, its intricate details gleaming under the red glow, creating a scene both divine and haunting. You step closer, lightly touching the statue's face. The clay is still scalding, but not the dry heat of the kiln. It's a soft, moist warmth, like breath just blown into the statue's core. You feel a faint tremor, gentle but clear. Not mechanical, not machinery, but a vague life force, hard to describe, as if the statue is breathing. You step back, scared but unable to look away. Everyone around you is the same. Veteran workers, silent supervisors, gaze at the statue with awe and disbelief. Someone whispers, "Unbelievable, it's still alive." You hear each hushed word, each probing glance, each hidden worry. An old worker near you says softly, "That's what we fear most. The statue lives, and the carver is trapped in it." You don't know what to think. A living statue, the idea is both captivating and chilling. You don't dare touch the statue hard, fearing you'll disrupt its fragile life force. Suddenly, you see its eyes glint oddly, not reflected light, but a gaze with depth, consciousness, even a hint of sadness. You freeze, breath heavy, heart pounding, like it'll burst from your chest. A faint sigh passes through the air. You don't know whose or what, but it's enough to make you shudder. The supervisor steps forward, nods coldly, and says one sentence, "We've succeeded." But that success brings no joy. It brings suffocation, anxiety. You start to wonder, does this statue truly know who you are? Does it carry the souls of those who made it, those who died in the process? And most importantly, if it can breathe, how long can you stay alive? In the days after, the cavalry statue is placed in a prominent spot in the tomb. You hear it's part of the immortal army, guarding Qin Shi Huang in the afterlife. But you, who carved every face detail, every tiny line, feel abandoned here, in this world, in a body wasting away. Each night, as the kiln's glow fades, you dream of that statue, stepping from the kiln, standing in a forest of clay, looking at you with deep eyes, as if calling your name, inviting you to join its world. You wake in cold sweat, your heart gripped tight. Is a living statue a miracle or a curse? You can't answer, but one thing's certain, you'll never look at a statue the same way again. They're not just lifeless clay blocks, they carry the souls you and other workers gave. Souls slowly eroding, detaching from you, draining your life, leaving only the shell of someone who's become a statue. And in that strange warmth of the newly fired statue's eyes, you see a part of yourself, a part lost, a part dead, and a part that will live forever. You sit there, in the cold workshop, hands trembling as you hold the clay molding stick, gently layering clay over the statue's eyes. Those eyes, crafted with your finest strokes, harmonious yet sharp, now await their final touch. Sweat beads on your forehead, your breath ragged, unable to bear the invisible pressure weighing on your mind. As you place the last small piece of clay on the eyelid, a moment of suffocating silence follows. All sounds in the workshop cease, as if the world holds its breath with you. You stare at the statue's eyes, hoping for a miracle. Then, suddenly, the clay eyes blink. Once, not fast, not abrupt, but like the faint pulse of a fragile life waking. You flinch, dropping the molding stick, the small clatter echoing on the ground. The workshop is deathly still. No one breathes, no one speaks, only your heart pounding chaotically in your chest. The supervisor, standing nearby, steps forward, his cold gaze piercing the darkness. "How is it?" he asks, voice flat, as if inspecting an object, not a person. You swallow hard, trying to hide the tremble in your voice. The eyes just blinked. The supervisor frowns, stares deeply into the statue's eyes, then nods slightly. That could be, the clay still damp. You know it's just his way of masking shock, or perhaps fear, because everyone understands, blinking eyes aren't merely a physical effect. They're the first sign of life in these immortal statues, and that means you, who carved them, stand on the thin edge between life and death. You can't turn away, can't take your eyes off the statue. The faint torchlight reflecting on the baked clay makes those eyes seem to shimmer deeper. Some workers around you, eyes wide, hands gripping tools, tremble, not daring to touch the statue.
The sigh passes through.
You glance at them, seeing fear mixed with awe. You realize you're no longer just a worker. You've become part of a larger story, one beyond reason, beyond human understanding. Questions without answers flood your mind. Can a statue truly live? Does it have a soul? And if so, is that soul yours? The statue's eyes keep widening, as if inviting you into their world. You try to close your eyes, to forget the image, but you can't. It's burned into your mind, a curse you can't lift. As you try to stand, your legs shake, your body disobeys. You fear that if you look away from the statue, you'll miss something vital, something terrifying. That night in the camp pit, you can't sleep. Each time you close your eyes, those clay eyes blink in the dark. You hear whispers, wind, fire, the voices of souls trapped in statues calling your name. You wonder if one day you'll become a statue that blinks, sees, feels, and then you'll stand forever silent, trapped in a world without light, time, or escape. You sigh, telling yourself that no matter what happens, you'll never forget that moment when the statue you made, lifeless clay, first blinked. And from that moment, you know your life, or rather your existence, will never be peaceful again. You and the statue have become one, and in that fusion, both have lost the last shred of humanity. You start hearing voices. At first, they're just faint echoes, like wind whistling through rock crevices, like the quiet sound of clay being kneaded. But then the voices grow clearer, like a dense whisper piercing every corner of your mind. impossible to ignore or dismiss. Hurry up, or be replaced. The voice doesn't come from outside, not from the supervisor or your fellow workers. It comes from inside your head, an undeniable command, an invisible pressure weighing on every thought, every movement. You try to block it out, try to focus on your work, molding clay, carving details, shaping statue parts. But each time you falter, the voice rings louder, urging you to finish your task as fast as possible. Hurry up, or be replaced. Your heart races, your breath quickens, and your hands no longer feel like yours, as if controlled by another force, one that demands you never stop. You try to resist, to reclaim your will, but the mental pressure grows heavier, leaving you nearly disoriented. The voice isn't just a reminder, it's a warning. If you don't finish, you'll be replaced. You know what that means, not just replacement, but erasure from life, turned into lifeless material for another statue. Life and death in this statue camp are separated by a thin line, and you're standing on its edge. You start working in an almost unconscious state, hands and feet moving automatically, eyes blurred, mind empty. Each knife stroke, each layer of kneaded clay is a struggle between your will to live and the oppressive force within. The voice in your head never stops, like an invisible monster, both companion and enemy, inescapable. Sometimes you hear it whisper in the supervisor's voice, sometimes in the voices of finished statues, of souls trapped in clay. You can't tell what's real or fake, can't distinguish reality from the nightmare swallowing you. At times, you nearly collapse, fainting in the workshop, but the voice still echoes, urging you to stand, to continue, to finish. You know that if you give up, someone else will take your place, and that someone could be you. Every passing second, the pressure weighs heavier, leaving you unable to think of anything but finishing the task, not falling behind, not being replaced. Your body weakens, but your mind is chained by that relentless voice. You start to feel you're no longer your own master. You're part of a giant machine, driven by fear, pressure, and the curse of hurry up or be replaced. And when the faint light in the workshop dims, when the kiln's hum falls silent, you still can't stop hearing the voice echoing in your head. Hurry up or be replaced. Trash it. It's a command, a curse, a sentence you carry for life, until you become a statue, motionless, silent, eternal. You stand there, exhausted to the point of collapse, as the final statue you molded, carved and poured sweat, tears and blood into, is completed. Every detail on the statue is so exquisite, it seems almost alive, from the armor's folds to the deep, soulful eyes. You look at it, feeling both pride and unease, because you know the statue's completion isn't just the end of a task, but the beginning of your own fate. The supervisor approaches, his eyes cold and emotionless, holding the worker list, scanning your name with indifference. Then he takes a pen and draws a straight line through it, a wordless act heavy with finality, erasing you from the camp's book of the living. Your breath catches, you're not allowed to react, to cry out, or to beg. That strike is a verdict, a final judgment. A guard steps forward, roughly grabbing your arm, leading you through dark corridors, past rooms where new statues are lined up, finished and ready for a journey, with no escape. You walk, not knowing your destination, only that you're no longer a worker, but an object, about to have your fate swapped. You're dragged into a small room, where clay is being prepared, where faint lamplight reflects off broken statue fragments. There, you're told to strip and kneel. No one explains further. Your limbs feel ice cold, your heart races, your breath is frantic. You hear shoving, sneering laughter, the sound of a sharp knife, ready to cut into flesh. You know you can't escape. Each step brings you closer to tragedy. You see yourself not as a person, but as material, a part to be mixed into clay, kneaded into another immortal statue. Before losing consciousness, you hear the supervisor call your name, his voice full of challenge. This is the fate of those who make statues. Once the work is done, so is your life. You try to cling to your final breath, but everything blurs. When you wake, you're no longer in the world of the living. You feel rigid, cold, yet still hear the sounds around you. You realize you've become a statue, not just in form, but in soul. You know that from now on, you'll stand silent, framed in painful immortality, forever part of the Terracotta army, guarding China's greatest tomb. You have no choice, no voice, no life. You're just a statue, and the statue is complete. In your final moment as a worker, you understand the most terrifying thing isn't death, but the gradual disappearance into a statue's form, buried under clay, forgotten in history's darkness. You've become part of eternity, eternal in silence, eternal in darkness, eternal in stillness. And in that stillness, you still hear the whispers of other souls, those who were once like you, once workers, once dreamed of living another day, and ended as statues. You no longer know who you are, only one thing: your name is struck from the book of the living, and from now on, you belong to the tomb, to the clay, to an eternal death, with no return. You stand there, motionless among hundreds of terracotta statues, warriors, cavalry, soldiers with cold eyes and stern faces, as if guarding a long-gone dynasty. But you're no longer sure who you are. Are you the person standing there, trying to hold on to your own form? Or have you become a statue, clay, and stillness? Your eyes gaze into the hazy void, where faint light seeps through rock crevices, touching soulless faces. Your skin feels no longer like skin, but like a rigid clay layer, its deep carved lines devoid of soul. You want to close your eyes, but they won't shut. You want to breathe, but your breath grows heavy and fades. Your dreams, memories, emotions seem to be drained from you, merging into the statues around you. You hear the wind whistling through small cracks in the stone walls, the quiet footsteps of guards, and the whispers of long-lost souls. A question without an answer echoes in your mind. Are you the statue, or is the statue you? You feel the fusion of man and object blur into an indistinguishable line. You no longer know where you end, and the statue beside you begins. You recall the painful moments of being taken, the exhausting hours of labor, the sound of whips, the blood dripping onto clay, and you realize that pain didn't vanish. It became part of the statue, part of a soul inseparable from the clay. You try to grasp fragments of memory, images of home, parents, friends, rain, simple meals, but they blur, as if buried under thick, eternal clay. You realize you're not just a statue maker, but part of them, part of the terracotta army, motionless yet never dying, frozen in time and space, standing silent in an eternal underground. You hear whispers, calls of your name from deep within your mind, like echoes of the past, of those who passed through this life and were trapped in clay. You feel lonelier than ever, not because you're the last survivor, but because you've merged with the statues, losing yourself in their cold immortality. You think of Qin Shi Huang, who began this project, seeking eternal life through immortal statues. You wonder, did he know this immortality was the greatest loss of life, soul, humanity? You don't know if anyone out there remembers you, or if you're just a face among countless nameless statues, a form forgotten under thick clay. And then you realize, this may not be an end, but the start of another journey, a journey of a trapped soul, locked memories, an existence erased in eternal darkness. You stand there, eyes open, unable to close, in silent stillness, among hundreds of statues sharing your fate. You're no longer human, you're a statue, and the statue is you. The story of the terracotta statue makers under Qin Shi Huang is not just a chilling portrait of forced labor and the brutality of ancient feudal regimes, but also a profound reminder of the value of freedom, dignity, and health in modern life, especially in today's United States. In the story, details like the workers carving every beard strand, every identical left ear, or the fear when a statue opens its eyes reveal the harsh imposition and loss of human control under a tyrannical regime. This sharply contrasts with the core values of modern American society, where individual differences and the right to free expression are respected. The workers' gradual loss of identity, merging into the immortal statues, is a metaphor for losing one's humanity when caught in the grind of overwhelming work and invisible pressures in modern workplaces. In the US, mental and physical health concerns for workers are increasingly addressed, but the story reminds us that without self-care and boundaries for work and stress, anyone can become an immobile statue, losing their soul. The lesson is to stay mindful and human in work, to speak up when pressure exceeds endurance, to seek support from communities and legal systems, to protect physical and mental health. Don't let yourself become an unfeeling clay statue in society, but live fully with your emotions and unique value. as that's the true way to live and thrive in modern society. If you found today's story intriguing and want to explore more chilling historical mysteries, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch the next videos. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and see you in the next video with stories just as real and haunting.